Hello there, this is Brett Lonsdale from Lightning Tools and welcome to another webinar. So in this webinar this month, we're going to be talking about the Lightning Conductor. And for anybody that's new to the Lightning Conductor, we're just going to have a quick overview, but we're going to include some of the new features in that overview as well. So yeah, if you are familiar with the tool, you're going to learn a lot of new things as we go through the presentation today. And yeah, if you are already familiar with it as well, you're also going to see some, like I say, some brand new features. So before we get going, I just want to introduce myself and also introduce the company as well. So my name is Brett Lonsdale. I'm the founder of Lightning Tools and also Microsoft MVP. And we are a company that provide different tools for Microsoft SharePoint and have been doing that for around about 15 years now. So that includes things like the permissions management tool that we offer called DeliverPoint. We also have the content aggregation that we're going to be looking at today. We have a discussion board tool as well called Social Squared, and that was something that we did a webinar on last month. So you'll be able to come across that by looking at our webinars page. We also have a data integration and visualization tool called the Data Viewer, and also a list form design tool. And that's going to be the webinar next month. So if you're interested in customizing modern SharePoint lists and library forms, then that's something that we'll be presenting in the webinar around about the same time of the month in April. Okay, so that is Lightning Tools, and today we're going to be talking about obviously the Lightning Conductor and content aggregation in general. So we're going to kick off with that in just a moment, and most of this is going to be a live demo. In fact, I think I'm well over halfway through my PowerPoint slides already. You'll be glad to hear. So yeah, we'll have a look at the Lightning Conductor, how to configure it. And we'll also cover a lot of the things along the way about the different types of things, the different types of lists and graph entities that we can aggregate from as well, and how to apply some of the styling. And there's a lot of new features inside that styling as well, things like pill formatting, which we'll introduce today, and people avatars and things like that, which you'll see as we go through the presentation. And we've also got some new graph entities as well. So we do keep up with what Microsoft is doing and the Microsoft Graph team. So they've expanded the sort of things that you can connect to via Microsoft Graph. So we've done the same with the Lightning Conductor. So that now includes Microsoft To Do as well. So using the graph entity, we're going to go through and query some of our task lists, and well, the task lists in Microsoft To Do, combine them also with tasks coming from SharePoint task lists, and also build in some planner views as well. And the planner views that you'll see today are actually brand new planner views that we've created using JSON. So you'll get to take a look at those. So there is some new JSON views, but there's also new JSON column formatting as well that we'll talk about. And this is to do with taking the existing column formatting that you may have already applied to a modern list inside of SharePoint natively, and you can take that JSON and now apply that to the Lightning Conductor as well. So we'll talk about the benefits of doing that and also how to do it. And at the very end, we'll have the opportunity for any questions. So if you do have questions as we go through, feel free to obviously write those down or pop them in the chat window, which is probably even better, or the Q&A window, and I'll read those out as we get to that point of the webinar, and I'll be able to provide you with an answer to any questions that you might have as well. Okay, so let's get going. So first of all, the Lightning Conductor, the purpose of it, in a nutshell, is to bring content to you through content aggregation. And we don't actually physically move the content. We don't import it into a new list or anything like that. We're just basically creating views of content that is useful to see inside of one place. And that one place might be Microsoft Teams. It might be Microsoft SharePoint pages, but ideally, we can bring the content together to form a view, and also to apply conditional formatting and other formatting to that view as well, to make that content stand out, so that we can actually see the key information that we need to see and maybe make decisions upon. So the idea being that if we take SharePoint as an example, throughout SharePoint, we've got lots of different lists created in lots of different sites. These sites may be organized in classic site collections. They may be in hub sites and associated sites. There may also be different types like documents. They may be task lists. They might be custom lists even, they could be announcements, whatever it is. We can basically go through and aggregate that content into that single view. And that saves you a tremendous amount of time when looking for the content. We can basically have it to hand all the while. So go into the Lightning Conductor, we'll be able to see all the tasks that are assigned to us, no matter what site they were created in. We don't have to try and remember which site it was that was among the many sales sites or many human resource sites that we have that task was created in order to go through and mark it as completed. We can do all of that from within inside the Lightning Conductor. And you can have multiple views of content. So you'll see this in the live demo in just a moment, but on the PowerPoint slide here, you'll see there's a view drop down. So we could actually have our task lists coming in from SharePoint, our task lists coming in from To-Do, and also from Planner, all inside the same web part instance, but we basically go through and select the view that we want to see from that drop down. So we can literally get to them very, very quickly. Indeed, we don't have to go searching for tasks anymore. And it's not just tasks, as I mentioned, so it could be document libraries. And when we create documents, sometimes we forget which document library we created it in, especially with Office nowadays. It tends to remember a document library. And I'm finding that sometimes even I create a document and it's not just in a library somewhere inside my tenant, is sometimes popping into a different tenant because that was the last tenant that I authenticated with. So you tend to find that, yeah, sometimes it's difficult to try and find a document, and it may have even been created in OneDrive. You can't remember because it was several months ago. So with the idea of the Lightning Conductor, we can build views around our content that we created, content that we modified, content that's checked out to us, that type of thing, or even content sorted upon custom metadata. So we can do that with SharePoint lists and libraries. We can also do it with lots of graph entities as well. So we use the graph API to securely go and access the information from things like Planner and To-Do and OneDrive, events, all sorts of information that's available through Microsoft Graph. And we've made that easy for you to do. So you don't need to go in and write code or anything. You can do all of that using the Lightning Conductor without code. And as mentioned already, build views of content with conditional formatting to highlight that information. And you can also use connected web parts as well to provide all sorts of solutions using filters and also providing the data out to another consuming web part. And we'll talk about that in just a moment as well. So we're into the demo. So we're going to spend most of the time in the live demo. So first of all, we're going to take a look at aggregating from the lists. And then also some of the other Microsoft 365 applications as well that I mentioned. So yeah, we can bring in Excel documents, Word documents, PDFs, whatever it is from those document libraries and from OneDrive. We can also get to things like the obviously SharePoint list content, Teams content, whatever it is through Microsoft 365 graph queries, and then we can go through and style those results. And I'll also show you the JSON views and the Webpack connections as we go through. And then finally, we're going to jump into Teams as well, and you'll be able to see how all of that is applicable to Teams as well as in SharePoint, which is really powerful when we're spending most of our time in Teams nowadays, so that we can have all of our documents to hand in Teams, even if they were created across in different SharePoint sites that haven't yet been teamified. So I'm going to Alt-Tab into SharePoint, and we'll dive into the demonstration. So here we have a completely new page. It's not got the Lightning Conductor web part on it yet, so you're going to see that from scratch. So I'm just going to simply go in and edit the page here, and we'll add the Lightning Conductor onto the page. So when we click onto that plus icon here, we can do a search for the different web parts, and we're going to go through and select the Lightning Conductor. And just to point out as well, you'll see here the highlighted content web part comes up. The highlighted content is the out-of-the-box content aggregator, which is great. It provides you with some nice looking views, but one of the things is it's not very flexible. It doesn't allow you to add and remove columns and that type of thing, which you'll be able to see is really straightforward inside the Lightning Conductor. So that's what we're going to take a look at first of all. So we've got the Lightning Conductor added to the page here, and all we need to do is click onto the blue button to configure it, and that will bring up the Lightning Conductor side panel here with some of the web part properties, but it will also, in the center of the page, bring up the quick configuration. And it's using that quick configuration that we're going to use in order to, first of all, aggregate some lists. Now you'll see in the drop down here, there's different types of things that we can aggregate, and that is by no means the full list. This is some of the more common things that you do. So we can do things like the task list aggregation and announcement aggregation, document library aggregation, but also we can get to some of those graph entities as well, like the planner plans and the planner tasks and the OneDrive items and so on. So anything that is not in there, you can still get at by jumping into the advanced mode and creating a query, and I'll show you how to do that as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is go through and select tasks. And you'll notice, depending on what I select here as the type of content I want to view, there are different ways of refining it which are built in. And again, this is just a starting point of some of the sort of common scenarios. And you can override that by changing the filters and changing the columns that are displayed once we've actually got the configuration complete and on the page. So like I say, my tasks and my overdue tasks are a starting point in there that are there to be refined further if you want to. And you'll see similar things for documents. So we've got things like my documents and my checked out documents that you can go through and refine as well if you want. So we're starting off with tasks, and we've got different places that we can grab those from. So I'm going to actually go with the hub site and associated site. So I am on a hub site at the moment. There's a number of different SharePoint sites that are associated with this hub. So I'm going to aggregate from all of those. And the nice thing about this configuration is as more sites get associated with my hub site, they will automatically be included in the aggregation. So we don't have to keep going back and reconfiguring the Lightning Conductor. Any tasks that are created in there will automatically come through. And we're going to display those results in a grid view. We have got a calendar view as well for tasks, and you'll see that that changes depending on the type of entity. We'll have a look at some other views later on, but there is a calendar view if you want to display tasks or events in a calendar. And one of the new features to the Lightning Conductor is this one here, the display person avatars. So I'm just going to go through and select that, and we're done. So I can hit save, and that will bring back my aggregated content. So as we scroll down, you'll see that we've got some tasks. We can see who they're assigned to. We can see the task status, and any that are completed, they have some conditional formatting on in yellow, and we've also got the green ones that are currently in progress. Okay, so with that information, we've already got key information standing out. And you'll notice with the person avatars that as I hover over that person, we can send an email or start a chat. So that's great. If we don't know who this person is and there's a task assigned to them and it's overdue, we could maybe give them a nudge, or we can actually hit the drop down here as well and see some other things to do with them that they may have been working on, or other profile information as well to do with that user. So lots of information here, along with the presence indicator as well, so I can see whether that person is actually currently online or not. Okay, so that's the type of information that we've got there. Now you can customize this completely. So if you want to customize it, you can show and hide additional columns. So in here, we can go to the column settings and choose show column. And all of these columns here are to do with the Lightning Conductor and the task lists. So in here, we're looking for the start date. There it is. So I can go through and select that. So we now have the start date added to the view as well as the due date. It kind of makes sense to me that that should appear before the due date. So I can come in here and just shift it off to the left there a couple of times. And there we go. So we've now got the start date and then the due date. And I don't necessarily need to see the time. I'm just more concerned with the date. So I can also come in to the settings here and set my display format. So we're going to go through and set that to a short date. And you'll notice all of these other parameters you can go through and set on that particular column. Okay, so that's now formatted into the short date. And of course, we could do the same thing with the due date as well. Now, the next thing I want to show off is some of the new formatting capabilities. So here where we've got the priority column, I'm going to jump into the formatting on that. And we're just going to set a few conditions here. So I can add 3 sets of conditions because I've got 3 sets of styling for 3 different conditions. And basically, we're going to set this on the priority. So whether the priority is high, whether it's normal, or whether it's low. And in here, the condition, usually I would pick one of these icons, the Fabric UI icons, and set a color and so on for that. But what is sort of new in keeping in modern SharePoint is to use the pill colors. So what I'm going to do is choose the pill color. So it's not necessarily just a background color that looks like a block. It's actually this nice rounded little pill shaped formatting. So what we're going to do is choose a custom color. We've got some colors already on the palette here. So as you go through and select a color for the first time, it will get added to the recent colors. And that allows you to create some consistency as well when you're going through and doing the styling. So I'm going to choose a red, and sorry, let me just select that again. As a red, hit save, and I'm going to change the fore color as well. So we can go through and choose white as a fore color, and that just makes that text stand out a little bit against the dark red background there. And we can obviously do the same on the other two conditions. So we'll have this this yellow, and we'll change the fore color to white. And finally, on my last condition here, we'll go through and select the green and set that to the white fore color as well. Okay, so that's our conditional formatting done, and now I can hit save, and you can see how we've got that conditional formatting coming through, and it's looking a lot more modern than just having a big block as a background color to that text. Okay, and of course we've got things like the data bars that you can do as well. So in here we can go through and add some data bars. So I'll just add a data bar here and select a color for that one. And I'll just choose the theme color so it blends in, but tone down the theme color a little bit so it looks a little bit less in your face. There we go. So there's our data bar, so we can visually see the percentage of these tasks and how they're being completed. Okay, so that's the type of thing that we can do there. So that pill formatting is brand new. The avatar is brand new, and you'll see those not just inside a task list rollup, but also inside a document library rollup as well, which we'll be doing shortly. So I'm going to name this view. We're going to call this task lists or task lists. Task lists. There we go. And we'll add a new instance. And what I'm going to go with here is Microsoft To Do. Okay, so Microsoft To Do is if I just grab this URL and create a new tab in here, I will load Microsoft To Do from the menu. Which is in here somewhere. Thankfully, we can search. All right, there we go. So I'm just going to bring up the Microsoft To Do here. And you can see inside of Microsoft To Do, I've got a few different lists that I've created. And you can color code these lists and that sort of thing. And you can add some of these tasks to your planned day, or you can complete them and that type of thing. So basically, there's lots of different places where you can create tasks. There's task lists throughout SharePoint, but like I say, there's also To Do and there's Planner as well. So what I'm going to do here is actually query those to-do lists by selecting the to-do lists here and just simply selecting the task view. And this is a brand new JSON view with a brand new graph entity. So what we have now is a drop down. So I can choose task lists, and then I can choose Microsoft To Do. And inside the Microsoft To Do view, we can go through and select those lists that we just saw in Microsoft To Do. So I've got one called ticket research, and there's the two completed tasks in there. We can go to tasks, which are more personal tasks like buying more sugar and things like that. And as we've done these, we can go through and complete them actually using this JSON view, which will write that as completed directly into To Do. I can also go in and delete some of these as well, or we can add new ones. So in here, I will add a task for deliver a webinar, and that is due today. So that's there. I can add that, and just jumping back into To Do here, we should see. Let me just remind myself that that was under tasks. There we go. So if we go into tasks here, there is deliver webinar due today. Okay, and if I mark it as complete here, then of course it's going to be marked as complete here once we refresh, which I'll do in a moment. All right, so that's another view. And what I also want to bring in is Microsoft Planner. So we'll go through and add a new view here using the graph, and I'll call that Planner. So Microsoft To Do is more sort of my tasks. Planner is my tasks, but organized by projects where there's other people also working on those projects. So in here, we're going to go through and select the planner plans. So we've got that selected. We can choose again how we want to refine that and how we, or where the data is going to come from, which is always going to be graph in that case. And I can use a task view for that one or a grid view. And I'm just going to go with that brand new task view, which is the new JSON view. So now we've got task lists coming from SharePoint lists. We've got my tasks coming from Microsoft To Do, and I've got planner tasks as well. So there's all the planner tasks. We can choose those by plan, just like we did with the list inside of Microsoft To Do. I can add things to my planner using that, just like we did with To Do. And I can also go through and assign some of these tasks to other people as well. So just simply clicking onto the person column there, again, as long as I have permissions, I can go through and assign other people. So if I wanted to add demo user 5 in here, for example, we could start typing that user's name, select demo user 5, and now that user is added to that planner plan and that planner task. And just like before, we can go through and mark it as complete if we want to, and that type of thing, and it will write that straight back to planner. Okay, so we now have a Lightning Conductor instance showing everything that I need for tasks, which is fantastic. And we'll come on to documents and so on in just a moment. But what I'm also going to do is show you a little bit about the web part connections that we can perform with the Lightning Conductor. And one of those actually is using a filter web part. So if you've come from the background of Microsoft SharePoint on premises, you'll be very familiar with how we used to have these filter web parts, and they're not available inside of SharePoint Online. So what we're showing here is actually a completely free license exempt web part called Lightning Filters, which you can go and download from our website. And it has different controls based on the type of filter that you want to do. So if we wanted to do a date filter, we can select that, and it has just a single date or a date range. We've also got things like choice filters where we can go through and mark what those choices are to map those to a choice column. And I've also got things like people filters or taxonomy filters, which uses managed metadata and things like that as well. Okay, so I'm going to jump in here into the into the filter web part, and we've selected a people filter, and I'm going to have that default to the current user as well. So whenever the user lands on this page, they're going to see their own tasks. So in here we've got Lightning Tools, which is the account that I'm logged in as, and we can just make this a little bit more user-friendly by providing an instruction. So I can say, please select a user using the people picker. Okay, and what we're going to do is actually map that through to one of the columns in the Lightning Conductor. And to do that, I'm going to jump into the advanced mode. So we're going to click onto the configure icon against the view that I'm concerned with. Go down to the columns tab, and here under the assigned to, I'm going to click the filter icon, and I could actually just say tick that me checkbox, but that's always going to be me. It's always going to be the current user. What we've got with the filter web part is we're providing the user to a way of easily changing the user's tasks that they want to see. So I'm going to connect that to the Lightning Filters web part, and we're going to map it through to the title of the user. Of course, we could map it to the email address or user ID, whichever is relevant, but for me, it's title. So we'll map that, and as I hit save now, you'll notice there's no tasks returned because I don't have any tasks. But if I go through and remove that particular user and we add in demo user 6 from the people picker and select that user, we also don't have any tasks. So maybe it's demo user 5, big button. There we go, select that user. There we go. So there's demo user 5's tasks and so on. So we can use that, and you can connect multiple instances of that web part as well with an or as opposed to an and when you're filtering each of these different columns to get at your content. Okay, so that is consuming a connection from Lightning Filters, and I'm actually just going to go through and remove that filter, because what I also want to show you is how we can provide a connection as well. So I'll clear the filter here, and we can go through and remove that web part. And I'm going to change the configuration of the columns here to 2 columns, but I'm going to have a wide column on the left and a narrow column on the right of my page. And on the right hand side, I'm going to add the data viewer. So we'll go through and select the data viewer, and I'm going to configure that. And the data viewer is a web part that allows you to connect to external data sources and display grid views or charts. So with this one, I could connect it to things like SQL databases and Excel files and things like that, but I'm actually going to connect it to the Lightning Conductor, and we're going to display a chart. So the data source here is actually the Lightning Conductor. So we'll go through and select that. And I want to work with the retrieved items, all of the items, rather than just a single item. And now I can go and choose the columns that are displayed inside the Lightning Conductor. And I'm going to go and grab the priority column and the ID. So that's the list item ID. And on the display tab here, you can see a chart that doesn't look great. What I'm going to do is go through to a pie chart. We'll use that instead. And I'm going to group by the priority. And now we've got a pie chart where we can easily see how many low priority tasks versus normal priority tasks and high priority tasks we have. And we can go in and change these colors if we want to. So if you don't like the purple and you want it to blend in with the theme color, you can do all of that. And the high priority, I've now got a clashing color. So let me go through and choose a different color for that one. There we go. Oh, didn't like that color for some reason. Maybe I'm turning that right down. No idea. Let's see what it does. It's going to display an error. Strange. Okay. Maybe try that one more time. Apologize for that. So let's just add a new instance of the data viewer, and I can do this quickly without the re-explanation of everything. Okay, so we'll grab the Lightning Conductor, retrieved items, columns is title and ID, and we'll have a pie chart, group it by swap those around. Sorry, I didn't want group by. There we go. I want priority, not title. That's where we were going wrong. All right, so I'm fine with the colors this time. So let's just go through and select that. And now we've got our chart showing the data based upon the aggregated view with the Lightning Conductor. So as more tasks come in, of course, that's going to be reflected inside that chart as well. Okay, so we can consume connections with the Lightning Conductor. We can provide connections as well and provide data out to consuming web parts. All right, so I'll just remove that and let's go in and make this once again a single column. There we go. So we've got the width back on the Lightning Conductor. And what I want to show you this time is actually some document aggregation. So if we click onto the edit web part, we've got our 3 views here. We can add a new view. So we'll call this one documents. And of course, we can go through and select documents from the current site and associated sites. We can display that in a tile view or in a grid view. And we've also got the display avatars on there as well. Okay, so that's now given us a document library view of the content coming in from those sites that are all inside my hub. And again, we've got those avatars showing on the created by column and also on the modified column as well. All right, so that's the documents, and some other sort of views that you might create around documents include OneDrive. So we can create a OneDrive view. So using the graph, I can go through and select the drive items, and that will appear in a grid view. So so now we can hit that as well. So we've got documents and OneDrive items coming in, and we can go into the properties here. And one of the things I like to do, which we should actually do by default, and I'll look at doing that, is setting the type icon as well. So once I select that, we actually get the folder icon or the document icon appearing inside that view. And we can do all the same sort of conditional formatting and what have you that we've been doing using the grid view of the other products. So if I wanted to navigate to one of these folders, things like the new icons, I can click to that, and that's going to open up my OneDrive and take me directly into that folder, so I can go and access my files from there. So everything is to hand. All the documents inside document libraries are displayed, as well as my OneDrive items in one view. So you may want to do all of that inside of Teams. So as I switch to Teams here, we can go and add the Lightning Conductor onto the page. And you've got two choices here. You can either add the Lightning Conductor as its own tab, or you can also display a SharePoint page in here as well. So if I display the Lightning Conductor as a new tab, of course I need to go and configure it. It's kind of like a new web part instance. But I'm actually going to take the time to show you some other configurations that we can do, and that is, I want to come down to my Outlook events. So I'm going to choose Outlook events, and this is another brand new view that we've got, and another graph query. So this is allowing me to choose again some refinements and so on. And I've got this new agenda view that I can display. So I'm just going to add that new agenda view, and we can see what's going on in each day rather than in a calendar. We just got it going on inside this this nice little agenda view here. Okay, so that's another sort of view that we can create in there. So lots of different views, and if you wanted your other views to come in, you could also export those from SharePoint and import them into Teams, or if you prefer, you can actually just go through and select the SharePoint pages, which hopefully is going to jump out at me here. There we go, it's right at the very top. So I can select SharePoint pages, and one of the benefits of doing it this way is if you have got multiple instances of the web part displayed, then you're actually displaying the entire page. So that case where I had the chart on the page as well, we could display the Lightning Conductor results and the chart in one particular page and go through and just set the name of that. So that way you get the consistency as well from the Teams environment to the SharePoint environment there. All right, so that's the sort of thing that we can do with those views. There is also another new view as well, which is a people view, and this one sort of just gets you started. So if we go through and select users, and I can choose a person list view. So I'll select that and just name that view person list. And now as we hit the drop down in the Lightning Conductor, we've got a list of different people. And those people are all coming from the Microsoft Graph as well. Now, the purpose of this is to really sort of provide a JSON where you could actually do some more work with a JSON if you wanted to, and I'll show you how we can go about doing that. So when you go into the configurations, you can see that this is using the Graph Rollup provider along with the JSON provider. So the data source here is configuring the graph query, where it's basically going against and choosing the user entity type. And notice my query is a graph query to bring back all users. Now you can play around with your own graph queries, so you can go in and edit these and use a custom one, and you can put in your own query text. And if you want to figure out how to do that, you can go to the Graph Explorer, and the Graph Explorer is something provided by Microsoft where you can go through and configure lots of your own sort of graph queries if you want to, and any of those you can get working, and then copy and paste the query text into here and you'll get the same results. And you can go through and style that using the Lightning Conductor. And on the display tab is where we're using the person list, and you can see this is where all those other JSON views are all stored. So if you wanted to make a customization of person list, you can actually go through and view our code here. So that shows the JSON code to do all the styling, and you can copy that, make it your own, and then import it into the JavaScript files library, which is under here. And once you've imported that, it will be available in the drop-down, and your users will be able to use it. And if you've created a whole load of customizations with JavaScript, and you've got your own views, you can switch off ours as well, just by switching that off there, and it'll just display your own JSON views that you've created with inside your own company. Okay, now JSON can also be used somewhere else, and I'm just going to switch back to SharePoint for this one. So if I just go across to the Lightning Conductor content site here and into my document library. So this is a standard SharePoint document library. And what I'm going to do is apply some of the formatting to one of these columns, like the modified column that's showing the modified date. And if I go to the column settings in any modern SharePoint column, I can come down to the column settings and choose format this column. And in here, there's some different formats that you can go through and choose. So there's a format dates, a conditional formatting, and so on. So if I choose that format dates, notice all the dates have gone yellow. And if I hit the edit styles, that's because the modified date is before today. So any new documents that were created after today or today would show in green and so on. And of course, you can go through and change those colors. There's a few different sort of pastel colors that you can select using that. So you also, with Microsoft SharePoint modern lists, have the ability to go in and customize the JSON. So there is a tool which was provided by somebody called Chris Kent, which is a great tool for actually rendering some of this JSON for the modern SharePoint lists and libraries. So there's all sorts of cool things that you can do with that. You can display like maps and all sorts of things against your data. And if you've done that for the out of the box list and you want to use the same thing in the Lightning Conductor, all you have to do is select the JSON, copy it to your clipboard. So I just did a Control-C, and then we can go into the Lightning Conductor, which is back here. Okay, so we've got our Lightning Conductor, and notice I've also got a modified column against my, that's my OneDrive. Let me just go to my documents. Okay, so I've got the modified date on my documents as well. So I'm going to go in and edit the page. And we'll hit the drop down on this column, go down to the column settings and then more settings. And I can now paste that JSON code in here and basically steal the same JSON coming in from the standard SharePoint libraries if you've customized those. And that way you get some consistency going on between the underlying SharePoint lists and libraries to also the Lightning Conductor. So now when I hit save, there we go, we've now got that same color coming through and the same formatting coming through into the Lightning Conductor. Okay, so that's another new feature that we have inside the product there. All right, so let's jump back to the slides for a moment. So yeah, we've seen how we can style some results. We've had a look at some of the new JSON views. We've done some web part connections, and we've also aggregated content out to teams as well. And as you can see, it's exactly the same process to get that content into Teams as it is to getting the content into SharePoint as well. And if you've not yet used the Lightning Conductor in Teams and it's not showing up for you, it's really straightforward. So if you've been using the Lightning Conductor for a little while, what you need to do is go into the app catalog, and in the app catalog, you will see the Lightning Conductor SharePoint framework package. You can select that and choose sync to Teams, and that's what makes it available on the Teams tabs as you go through. All right, so if you're already familiar with the Lightning Conductor, these are the new features kind of summarized. So the people avatars and cards, they are brand new. So yeah, when you get that people card popping up, that's a brand new feature. And incidentally, if you're familiar with our other products as well, like Social Squared and Deliver Point and so on, that feature's making it out towards them as well. So with Social Squared, you'll be able to see who's created posts and see the person card. And in the Deliver Point permission reports, you'll be able to see who the permissions belong to and that type of thing. We've also got the new pill formatting, which you saw. The Microsoft To-Do graph entity is brand new. And we've also got the styles that are built in, the people style, the agenda style, and the task style for planner and for to-do are all brand new JSON styles that you can either use them as they are, or you can also go through and customize those as well based on your needs. And the JSON column formatting that we've just seen, that's a brand new feature as well. All right, so next on the roadmap, just to sort of give you the heads up on what we're working on. So there are new people to the whole SharePoint world. If you have a look at the figures coming from Microsoft, you'll see that there's still a huge uptake on the number of people that are starting to use Teams and starting to use SharePoint. And these people don't necessarily know what is meant by site collections and things like that. They're more interested in using things like Teams and Planner and obviously Microsoft 365 groups that contain a SharePoint site and a document library and so on. So one of the things that we're actually working on is to create a new way of selecting your content by Microsoft 365 group. So you can basically go through and choose the groups that you want to aggregate from, and then you can choose the type of information that you want to see, whether it's Planner, whether it's team-based content, or whether it's documents and that type of thing. So not always selecting things based on SharePoint site, but maybe through the Microsoft 365 group. And we've also got the possible external graph connectors if it's possible to do it. So Microsoft announced, I think it was at Ignite last year, that there was the possibility of graph connectors coming in, which would allow you to sort of bring in things like Adobe files and things like that into the Lightning Conductor, and into SharePoint through the graph. And if that's possible through a SharePoint framework component like the Lightning Conductor, then we will work on that as well as a new feature. And this is something that we'll be releasing at the end of the year. Okay, so Q&A time. I see there is one question that has been asked, and that is about how we can have some alternate highlighted rows. So if anybody has got any questions whilst I'm sort of going in and answering this one, just feel free to post your question in the Q&A pane, and I'll be able to read that question out and answer it. And alternate rows. Yeah, so good question. I think it's in there. I know we talked about this one, so I'm just going to jump into the task lists here, and we'll go in and modify my task list view. So we've got selecting rows. I'm trying to remember. I think we worked on that feature, but I cannot 100% say for sure whether we did. So yeah, I might need to come back to you on that one. So yeah, the alternate rows I believe is a thing. Whilst I am in this this view, just to point out that if you have used the Lightning Conductor in the past and you want to use these new avatars and you don't want to create a new view from scratch, basically go in and choose the avatar styling against the assigned to column or the created by column, whichever column it is that you want to add that avatar to, and you can do all of that from here, which will allow you to start using that feature. But yeah, alternate rows, I'm pretty sure we do have that, but yeah, I'll need to come back to you on that one, I'm afraid. All right. I don't actually see any of the, oh, there is another question, sorry. So on the agenda roll-up, is that a rolling up the items within that group's calendar or all items or a specific user's calendar? Is there the ability to add calendar appointment from that roll-up like there is in To-Do and Planner and so on? Okay, great question. So yeah, the agenda view, so I created that one in Teams, so let's just create it here as well, and I can explain more as I go through. So you can use agenda against, or the agenda view against a couple of different options. So what I did was I used it against the Outlook events. And these are Outlook events belonging to me as a user. So it's using the Microsoft Graph to show my calendar in here. Now it's possible, because this is Graph, that you might want to go through and customize that query, as I mentioned, and that's where you could go into, I'll show you how to get there. If you go to Microsoft Graph Explorer, so Microsoft has this really cool tool where you can go through and build your queries and test them out before you write them into your code. So you can use this as well. So you know, things against like Microsoft To Do, if you expand that, it shows you how to get tasks and also how to put tasks, if you like, using a post query. So as we go through there, if we look under there's Outlook Mail, there's his Outlook calendar. So this shows you the different views. So there is a different ones that you can do here. So my events for next week, or all events in my calendar, or all my calendars. This is what we're basically going against. So if you want to go against a different query and still use that agenda view, then you can. So that will allow you to control, you know, what is displayed. There is a schedule a meeting and find a meeting time, which are things that we have not implemented. So these are the only two things that we would be able to do via the graph in order to go through and create you know, new agenda events. So yeah, if I just go against the Outlook events and I choose agenda, and we first of all select that agenda view, you'll see this is my events from my Outlook, and everything you do through Microsoft Graph, by the way, is security trimmed. So when somebody else comes onto this, they're going to see their events in their calendar. And when we click onto the cog icon here, I can show you the graph query. So it's going against event as an entity, and notice how it's me calendar events. And if I wanted to, like I said, I could go in and change that to something that you've practiced using using that Graph Explorer. So you could go through and create your own custom query in there as well. So yeah, no, we can't add new calendar events at the moment. It doesn't allow for that, but it does show you the agenda. There is also a calendar view as well, just to point that one out. The reason why I didn't really make a thing of it today is because it's always been there in the Lightning Conductor. So you could use that against tasks or Outlook or anything like that. So incidentally, if I just bring back some content and choose the calendar view, we do have a calendar view in here that that renders. So that's showing these tasks that are spanning quite a long time. As you can see, they're yeah, they're all for this month, so it doesn't look great in there. But yeah, that's a calendar view, and you've got a day, week, month view in there as well. But that is also a view only, and if you wanted to control that, even for custom lists, this will work for anything that has a start date and an end date. So you just need to go to the display tab, and if you are using a custom list, you can map your start date column and your end date column and your title column that you want to be displayed inside the calendar, and then you can basically go through and use a calendar on any list type inside of SharePoint. Okay, and there's a modern event page switch as well, which you've got. Okay, so yeah, hopefully that answers that question. So yeah, it's coming from my calendar, and you can't create items at the moment. All right, perfect. Again, I don't see any other questions coming through. So I'll just flick back to the slides for a moment and just point out that if you're new to this and you want to trial it, you can. Just go to lightningtools.com and click onto the products menu, and you'll see the Lightning Conductor off to the right under the SharePoint Online and Teams products, and you'll be able to download a trial from there, or you can also book a demo from there as well. If you've got some specific needs that you didn't see today that you want to discuss, yeah, create a demonstration and we'll be able to go through those needs and build some views, basically fine-tuned to your requirements. And if you're interested, also next month, like I mentioned, we will be doing a Lightning Forms webinar. So that will be in the around about the 18th, thereabouts, whatever. It's always a Thursday. So yeah, you'll soon get the link sent out for the Lightning Forms, and this is the thing that's going to allow us to go through and customize the layout and the logic behind our modern SharePoint list forms. Okay, but for today, just want to thank you very much, and yeah, hopefully see you again soon. Take care.